Film and Whiskey Nation, do you ever think about awards? Of course you do. You drink whiskey and watch movies, which means that you know that nothing is validated until a group of random people say, hey, we love what you're doing. The awesome thing about Doc Swinson's whiskey is that it isn't just some group of schlubs that are giving them awards. They have been winning attention from some of the most important whiskey experts that you can imagine. They've been voted best distillery in Washington State by the New York International Spirits Competition. They've been voted the best independent bottler by the Ascot Awards, as well as the best finished bourbon from the Ascot Awards for their La Menta Exploratory Cask. Their Exploratory Cask series is where they release some of the most fascinating and adventurous experiments. If you're ever checking out Doc's lineup and see a white label, there's a really good chance that that's the only time you'll see that bottle, so make sure you snatch it up. Doc Swinson's has been offering just phenomenal finished and blended whiskeys for quite some time now. You can find them online at docswhiskey.com. That's DOCS whiskey.com.
This episode is brought to you by Essentia. A better you starts with better hydration. Essentia is on a mission to inspire people to do what matters most. Their proprietary ionization process transforms water from any source into ionized alkaline water, providing water that's 99.9% pure with a pH of 9.5 or higher. Essentia overachieving H2O, the #1 ionized alkaline water. Shop now.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Film and Whiskey Podcast. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
Brad, we are coming at you with another special bonus episode.
Bonus episode.
Man, I have been super excited for today's bonus episode, Brad, because a couple weeks ago, I took a trip up to lovely Cleveland, Ohio, and Playhouse Square, the second largest performing arts district in the country, behind good old Broadway, and I saw a show called Hamilton.
I've never heard of it, Bob.
Right, I know. It's a little off-Broadway production that's making the rounds right now.
Nice.
So a couple years ago, when Disney Plus released their filmed version of Hamilton, we did an episode about Hamilton. And starting then, I have become obsessed with this show, Brad. Like, I don't usually get into fanboy territory. I don't usually go down the rabbit hole with the things that we watch on this show. But Hamilton is one of those things that every decade or so, there is a piece of art that comes out, and it's in different mediums. It could be a movie, it could be an album. And it is so dense, and there is so much to unpack, and there are so many references that you just can't help but almost get obsessed with it. And with Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton, I think that's kind of the defining piece of art that came out of the 2010s.
Yeah, it seems like it just captured a cultural moment of America exploring its history and asking questions about where we've come from and what that says about where we're going. And on top of, all of those deep, important questions it's asking, it's just really, really incredibly well written. Like, it might be one of the sharpest musicals that anyone has ever put pen to paper for.
I was going to say, yeah, we can talk all day about like doing criticism on the text and everything. But at the end of the day, it's like 50 bangers all strung together for 3 hours. It's just incredible piece of entertainment. And today we are joined by performer Jared Dixon, who is currently on tour with Hamilton in the Philip cast, performing as Aaron Burr. Jared, thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Jared, I will just start off by saying I have, Bob went and saw you a few weeks ago. I have some of my best friends in the world that saw you literally a few nights ago. And the reviews are in. You are a killer, Aaron Burr.
Pun intended, right?
Yeah, right. There it is. Let's just start there. Let's talk about the role of Aaron Burr a little bit. I mean, you're coming in a performance, in a role that, Leslie Odom originated and has become, I don't know, probably the most sought after role on Broadway right now. Like, he wins a Tony for the thing. Like, yeah. It's an incredible role. It is so nuanced and so layered. And I feel like the more you watch Leslie Odom in that performance, especially now that we have like the movie version to watch, it's got to be so hard to pull off that character because there's so much more going on internally with Burr than there is with somebody like Hamilton, who's just expressing himself out loud all the time.
Yeah.
What's it like to try to dig into this role that you know you have to express so much internal to someone that's sitting in the back row of the theater?
One of my favorite quotes about the difference between theater acting and like TV acting is from Denzel. And he basically said that there's no difference. You either tell the truth or you don't. And it's funny, like I've seen like reviews and stuff like that. I try not to bother too much with critics' opinions and stuff like that, but I'll see reviews sometimes that'll say like, like level of expression wasn't big enough, or it didn't feel like the energy was as big as it should be. And I don't think, not to criticize critics or anything like that, but if you watch the whole show and you got through room where it happens and Wait for It and Satisfied and all of the bangers, and you think that the show is not big enough, you just weren't dialed in. So it feeds the actor so much, not that I try to rely on the text or anything like that, but there's so much meat on the bone. And it's one of those, it's like a runaway train. If you blink, you've missed, a huge chunk sometimes. And I just try to do my best to stay on my toes and be as present as possible with my castmates, and bring real like joy and love to the stage, because people only like to watch people who are enjoying themselves do anything. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I wonder though, like I'm thinking about what you said about how if you blink in the middle of Hamilton, if you yawn for like 3 or 4 seconds,
Right.
You've missed like at least 800 words worth of content, right?
Right.
And so like what, you've been performing this for a little while now. What still surprises you in the text itself? Like as you work through the material night after night, is there anything that like recently has hit you where you're like, man, this line is just hitting me in a different way than it had, the past few months of performing it?
There's so many ways that Hamilton can change. It is so adaptable to the times. Any one thing happens in our political space and the show takes on a new color. Something happens in our personal lives and the show takes on a new color. I don't know, like a whole pandemic happens and the show, changes. And it's really easy to just keep your ears and your eyes and your heart open to the show. So I'll find new things to kind of point at as the narrator, and new things to emphasize in my text and stuff like that. One thing that I found really interesting is I'm probably like somewhere around 400 performances or 300 and change or something like that. And the line is, no, you don't. Yes, I do. Now be sensible. From what I hear, you made yourself indispensable. And then 2 nights ago, I just leaned into the pen in indispensable, as in you've been using your pen.
Yeah.
And that, like a little witty thing. I don't know if anybody caught it, but I just one of those, I guess, like kind of dad joke.
Yeah.
Moment for me. It was good for me. I hope somebody else got it.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I can't imagine, but you do it so often that you probably have to have something on stage to keep yourself from just getting rote with it. But finding something like that where you're just, I'm going to put emphasis on this word a little bit different. You have to find something to spice it up a little bit. But I imagine it has to be a huge challenge with something like Hamilton, where everything depends on the meter. Everything depends on the rhythm, and hitting certain beats the exact same way every time, because otherwise the songs don't work. Like there's so much intricacy to how these songs are fit together that, I mean, it's got to be as much a verbal and mental workout as it is a physical one on stage.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's only a few composers who write this really in this really dense way. You got like Sondheim, Roald Dahl, Lin-Manuel, JRB gets into the patter stuff sometimes. But in this show, it really is all of the devices of theater and live performance kind of coming together, and each moment is like like rich layered cake. If you bite off too much, you're not really enjoying it. So I think like when I'm in the show, it's more about just, like I said, keeping my eyes and heart open, being open to the moment. I don't really have any grand like design that I'm trying to affect in every show that I go on for. I'm really just trying to stay as present as possible to allow the show to do what it wants to do that night and really be, be a vessel in a sense.
And Jared, I'm like fascinated at this idea of like 300, 400, 500 performances, with the same cast and crew for the most part. People kind of come and go. But like I think about the fact that you played Simba on The Lion King in the past, and your co-star here, Taria Campbell, she played Nala in Lion King.
Right.
I don't believe it was at the same time, but like how tight knit is the Broadway community? That you guys all work around these same musicals, and you are with each other for month after month, and sometimes year after year. Like how special is it to be able to perform in these arts with these people who you're around all the time?
I mean, I'll tell you the most recent experience that I've had that's mind-boggling. 3 of my castmates I knew since they were like 16.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I was a little bit older. And one of them who just debuted last week, I've known since he was 9.
Wow.
So the guy who I knew since he was 9, I was his day camp counselor, and the other 2 one went to my high school, and then the other one I performed with when he was 16 and I was 25. And so for us to all to be on stage at the same time, it really just is a testament to how small the community is, but also how tight knit it is. We're able to see excellence in other people and continue to like encourage and feed people. And that was probably like the best gift that I could have received this year, was to be able to see some of the younger guys who coming up behind me. We're in the same generation, but they're a few years behind me. For them to have the level of success that they've had.
Yeah.
And then you have like my castmate Nikisha Williams, who I did Color Purple with, and a couple of my, Taria did Lion King, and I have so many connections with different castmates and cast members across the Hamilverse and across the theater, the theater world. You're never quite alone in the theater world.
Yeah, honestly, the way you're talking about seeing these guys come up that you've known since they were, 9, 16, it kind of made me think about how, like, in the NBA, there's so many young guns who are, like, young stars who are like, yeah, I remember when LeBron, like, came to our AAU games and, like, he was the greatest player in the universe, and now I'm playing against him.
Right.
And I guess I just bring that up to say you like must be the LeBron James of the musical universe.
I mean, I'm not quite 40 yet, but
your hairline's not receding like his.
Yeah. Being compared to GOAT 1A, I call him. I'm a Michael Jordan fan, but being compared to him, I'll take it.
Well, you're talking to 2 Cleveland boys. Well, actually, I'm the Cleveland boy. Bob is an Akron guy, so. We might get into it.
Yeah, like I could practically see LeBron's house from here. I'm like, you got to come like walk on eggshells a little bit when you're talking about who's the GOAT around us.
Hey, I'm accepting of all viable GOAT conversations.
There you go. As long as you can make a case, I'll entertain it. Right. All right, let's talk a little bit about your history, Jared, because you're acting like you're the elder statesman here, but you're still a young buck. Like I've seen you talk about the role of Simba in Lion King as quite possibly the most prominent and most challenging role that a young person can play. How did you get here? You came from Queens. You're the son of Broadway royalty in a number of ways. Like it's an incredible journey, and I want our audience to be able to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah. I mean, the long story short is I grew up being near the theater because my dad was a performer as well. And he's a classical singer, and also made his Broadway debut in Ragtime the Musical in the 90s. And I grew up knowing that knowing that I wanted to do something different, but not knowing exactly what it was. And I found performance later in my young adult years. After I graduated college, I started auditioning. I got my first job in Boston as well at Fiddlehead Theater. I did Ragtime, a completely full circle moment. And I played the role of Booker T. Washington, which my dad understudied on Broadway as well. And I've really just dedicated the past 10 years of my life since I, started performing professionally to getting better at every turn and making sure that every opportunity I take is a step up, not just in profile, but just in internal fulfillment and personal fulfillment. And that's guided me really well. And I really only care about being one of the best to ever do it, or that's up to other people to decide. But I'm gonna attempt and try my best and give all that I got to be as good as I possibly can at this thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, because there's a lot of people out there that have the ambition to play a role like Burr or a role like Simba, and probably have the energy and maybe have the stamina. But there's so much that goes into, I don't know, like having the experience, the life experience, and also honing your craft. Like, I can't imagine that, if this musical had existed 10 years ago and you look at where you were 10 years ago, that you would think that you'd be as effective as Aaron Burr as you are today. And I think, I guess my question then is, like, how do you see yourself growing as an actor, and how do you see your life experiences are those two things intertwined? Does your ability to convey these deeper emotions come from just the fact that you've seen more of the world since then? You know what I mean?
Right. It's a part of a necessary self-awareness that I think I've always had. I've always had the ability to look around and be honest with myself, not for the sake of comparison to other people, but just to say, when I see somebody do something that's incredible, I'll look within myself and say, oh, I can't do that, but I can get there. I'll look and say, I don't have that, whatever they just did, right? Like, I remember the first time I saw Joshua Henry on Broadway in Porgy and Bess. He was the person who I looked at and said, that is what I want to do. I'm not quite there yet, but I need to figure out how to do that. And now I'm at the point where I am doing it in my own way and figuring things out for myself. But like I said, it's just a necessary self-awareness that I think I picked up doing other things, playing basketball, running track. I'm naturally competitive by nature. I really just want to be the best. And I wouldn't say I'm like Kobe Bryant obsessive with, oh, maybe I am. I don't know.
I was like, not many people are the Mamba.
Right. I'm not like, 3, 4 in the morning every day obsessive, but I can be when necessary. When I find something, like when I find the need to go that far to do things, that's where I go. Yeah. And I take that approach with everything in my life, even about being a husband and about being a future dad and being a dog owner.
Yeah.
So it's, how you do anything is kind of how you do everything with me. And I've always just been about following my passion and making sure that I express my passion through my work. And I think it started to show better on stage with experience, because I trust myself more than I ever have.
Jared, that might be the best quote to come out of our podcast. How you do anything is how you do everything. Take that home, Film and Whiskey Nation. That's a good one to think on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jared, I don't mean to make you, speak it into existence here or name it and claim it or anything, but, everyone has like a bucket list of, man, I'd really like to get on stage and sing that song someday, or I'd really like to be in that show someday. And I imagine that some of them you're keeping, locked up and you're not going to speak it out loud. But like, what are some of the ones on your bucket list? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say it in case some producer somewhere is like listening to this, getting some ideas. So number one was Burr.
Let's go.
That's off the list. Bobby and Company.
Nice. I was just going to say, so everyone's got to sing Being Alive at some point, right?
At some point, yeah. It's like like a theater party trick for if you're Barry Tenor.
I was going to say, like, if Adam Driver can do it in Marriage Story, like, you can do it. Come on.
Basically. I'll say Bobby and Company is probably up there. I really identified with that show. It's weird to say I identified with that show at like 2019, but I really did.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully at some point I'll get the opportunity for that. I would also say above that would be a role to originate something. I want to originate something that's just as deep and nuanced as Burr, whether it be a villain or a tragic hero or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of other theater canon things that I would love to touch. I like Hermes in Hades Town. I'd like
nice.
to type that as well. I know they cast older actors in that role, but I think it'd be fun to do. Yeah, there's not many that I'm really like. I don't know. Burr really was like Burr was it.
Yeah.
For me, and so I have to, once I'm done putting on the tails, I'll have to reevaluate and see what's next. I mean, Bobby's still up there, of course.
What's the song with Burr that made you want to chase it like this?
Wait for It. Easily, yeah.
Wait for It is maybe the most slept on song in the whole show. Like,
I know.
In any other show, we'd say that is the showstopper. But because this show has Room Where It Happens and One Last Time and Satisfied, like, I feel like Wait for It gets buried in people's minds sometimes. And it is, we talk all the time, Brad, when we talk about movie musicals and the way that shows are structured about a character having a song that's called like their I Want song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Burr's I Want song. But it's so much deeper than just an I Want. Because he expresses that kind of thing later on in Room Where It Happens too, but it's his whole motivation. It's, I'm doing everything methodically because everything around me falls apart and I want to be able to control my destiny. And I feel like it makes Burr even more of a tragic figure. Like there's so much in that song, aside from just the vocals that really drive that character forward.
Yeah, I had a friend who we had a debate about whether that is an I Want song or not. And I did believe that, but then I came to the realization performing it that it's more of an identity song. Everyone else in the show gets introduced. Burr introduces himself.
Yeah.
And the first thing he says is, I'm the damn fool that shot him. But we don't get to really know who he is as a soul, as a human being with a soul, until Wait for It. And I think the things that he's saying about himself in that song are things that we all question. Are why do I do anything out here? Like, why do I go to this job? Why am I in love with this person? Why did I get this dog? And what he's really questioning is the very nature and fabric of what he's been taught and where he's come from, and whether that's enough to sustain him. And at that point in his life, he decides that it's enough. The way that he's doing things is enough. But you just see the chink in the armor because it's through the lens of comparison. And that's what makes it so tragic, because he says all these beautiful things about this legacy that he's come from. The second verse, my grandfather was a fire and brimstone preacher. My mother was a genius. My father commanded respect. But he's talking about the legacy that he comes from and this deep love that he has for Theodosia. And it seems so beautiful to the audience. It's like the color yellow in Van Gogh. If you see any Van Gogh painting, you say, oh, that's a beautiful yellow flower. And then you find out that yellow is the color that he used to signify the darkness in his soul.
Wow.
And the depth of his pain. And it changes the way you see anything. And so that's kind of what Wait for It is. It's that beautiful painting, but you find out the secret meaning behind it at the end, and you realize this guy has got some things to work on, as we all do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what I love most about Hamilton is that it takes these characters from history that, if we're being really honest, I would guess without the musical Hamilton, 70 to 80% of Americans wouldn't even know who these people were beyond the fact that they were American history figures, right? And yet it takes them and it reminds us that, you know, we get so caught up in our own lives and our own day-to-day things and assuming that all, you know, politicians are evil or they're perfectly good or, you know, we do all this. And yet something like Hamilton takes all of that and says, hey, all throughout history, people are just people. They want to be known and loved and understood and safe. And they want to be able to provide those things for the people that they love. And whether you're a politician in the, you know, 1800s or you're just an average citizen trying to live through a pandemic, like those are things that we can all relate to. And I think that's what Hamilton does so well. It's
a cautionary tale. It's an ode to the beautifully flawed experiment that is America. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a testament to humanity. It's a plea for humanity in some ways, because the truth is at the end of the show, you know, Burr is able to say, if I had just waited, if I had listened to myself, if I had trusted myself enough, I might have seen that there was space enough for both of us. And that's the most beautiful walk-off home run, you know, that I don't think I've ever seen in a musical was for him to drop his ego at the end and just say, you know, yeah, I'm trash. And we all are.
Well, I think that's like the most beautiful thing for me about the way that show ends is you finally understand the link between Burr and Hamilton is that in their own ways, they both tried to be the masters of their fate. They both tried to write their own legend. And I don't think either of them realized until it was too late. And that's when, you know, Washington comes back on at the end and starts, you have no control who lives, who dies, who tells your story. Like the final reminder of this musical is like, you can try as much as you want to be the master of your fate, but the way your story gets told is not up to you. And it shifts in those final moments to talking about Eliza, this person who we don't know anything about really, and who had no chance to tell her own story. And like, that's what Lynn's doing at the end of the story is he's like, I'm going to tell the legend of this person now. And I think it says a lot about like what you guys are saying. It's really instructive to how much are you going to waste your energy trying to construct your own legend and narrative? And how much are you going to accept the fact that like you have no control over that at all?
Yeah. I mean, if you're I'm reading a lot of Eckhart Tolle right now, and Burr's, I think he would categorize Burr as someone who's egotistically steeped in his past and future. He's never quite in the present because he's always waiting. Hamilton's never quite in the present because he's always planning, you know, and that ends up being the foil of both of them. Burr, in the story, at least, you know, I've read enough, but I've read enough to know that I know nothing about Burr, you know, about anyone. And I accept that, like, you know, revisionist history is a thing. And, you know, I wasn't there, so I'll never know the truth. But I know that in the story, he's so seemingly concerned with upholding this legacy and being right and being a part of the thing that he doesn't necessarily, you know, the most beautiful parts of his show are nonstop to me when he's, you know, he's at home and Hamilton's like, hey, come kick up dirt with me. And he's like, no, I think I'm good. I think that's if the show ends there, Burr probably goes off and lives a great, happy life somewhere, right? But, you know, by the end of the song, he's like questioning again for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it's like we said, so much meat on the bone.
Yeah, well, and we could honestly go on talking about it for another 3 hours, but I think what we need to do now is Bob and I are going to we're going to review the Beverly High Rye whiskey, and then we're going to come back and talk with Jared about our top 5 movie musicals. So get ready for that whiskey review, and then we'll be back with our top 5 movie musicals.
All right, so today we are checking out the Beverly High Rye American Whiskey. Brad, this is called an American whiskey, not just a rye, because it's not technically a bourbon. It's not technically a rye. It is a blend of straight rye and straight bourbon. So, it probably works out that there is still more corn in the overall mash bill here than there is anything else, but it can't be called a bourbon legally because it's blended. So, you know what? I'm okay with it.
It's a melting pot, Bob.
Just like America.
That's right. Yeah, man, this one is coming out of Cedar Ridge Winery and Distillery in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Fun fact, where my family is from.
Yeah, man. We've had a couple of their products on the show before. I love Cedar Ridge, so I'm very excited about it. Yeah, this is a blend of whiskeys that come from Cedar Ridge and from Indiana. So if you can guess where the whiskey in Indiana is coming from, you'd probably be right. I'm super excited about this, man. I've seen this bottle all over Instagram. It is a very picturesque bottle. Like, it's a really nice one to have on your bar. Really draws attention to itself. I'm hoping that the whiskey inside the bottle is every bit as good as the packaging on the outside. Brad, you actually did a little bit more research on this than I have. So why don't you walk us through what you've found out about this whiskey?
Yeah, so this whiskey is coming in at 96 proof. And they have already won a few medals, Bob. They've won a gold medal at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, as well as the New York World Spirits Competition. So the Beverly knows how to blend some whiskey.
Coast-to-coast awards for the Beverly.
That's right.
All right, let's jump in, man. What are you picking up on the nose here?
Oh, man. You know what I just realized? It reminds me a little bit of the Outland Scotch that you got us a while back.
Really?
It literally just hit me. I've already taken my notes, but yeah, it has like this sweet cherry licorice nose that's mixed with like a cream of wheat, some caramel, some black pepper. It's a really, really nice nose, Bob.
Yeah, I think pepper is a really great note to bring out on this one. It does smell like a bourbon. It smells like a high rye bourbon, which I expected when it's called the Beverly High Rye. So there's a lot of that rye spice on the front. There's a lot of that pepperiness. I get a little bit of like a Coca-Cola kind of effervescence on this one. I like it a lot. Not super complex on the nose, but it tells me that it's going to be sweet, but with a little bit of a kick from that pepperiness. When I get into the taste here, Brad, I'm a little bit surprised that it's not quite as sweet on the palate as I was expecting it to be. And it almost has a little maltiness to it. And I don't know if there's any malt in any of the mash bills that they're blending here. But when you said it reminded you of a scotch, that's where my mind went, is that on the palate, it's a little maltier than it is sweet.
Yeah, it definitely came across as creamy for me. There was still some of that cherry lingering from the nose. Then it got kind of minty at the back end. And I thought it was a really, really nice palate. And when you get into the finish here, it gets into a really beautiful toasted oak. There's some marshmallow flavor going on. And for me, it almost left a little bit of like an Angostura bitters flavor that almost got sour. Like my first sip, it almost got sour at the back end. But the more I sat with it and drank it, the more it kind of evened out into just that Angostura feel.
There's quite a bit of smokiness on this. And I wouldn't call it like peat, but it reminds me of non-peated scotches and how they still have that kind of like a wisp of campfire smoke about them. This has that. It's like minty and smoky at the same time. It definitely turns a little bitter, not sour, but a little bit on the more bitter end of things on the finish. I liked your note of Angostura bitters. For me, it doesn't quite have that level of complexity to it, but everything seems to be consistent. Like that black peppery and rye note that I got on the nose really did a good job of preparing me for where this was going to go, because otherwise I would have thought that this was going to be way sweeter than it is on the palate.
Yeah, Bob, this, the balance, I think that this is like above average complexity that has really nice flavors throughout. This is a really good whiskey, man.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the price point on this, because you told me that you're seeing it retailing for about, what, $59?
Yeah, $60.
All right, so again, I don't want to call it a craft whiskey, but it is coming from a smaller craft distiller, at least some of what their sourcing is in Cedar Ridge. And I like Cedar Ridge's stuff. They're putting it in a really nice bottle. The packaging is like stellar. Just for $60, man, it's like, I would probably recommend some other whiskeys that I like better than this, but I also want to say that I don't think this is overpriced. Like, I think it's a fair value for what you're getting. Could it be a little bit cheaper and get a little bit of a higher score on my metric? Definitely. But I also don't think that this is like astronomically overpriced.
No, I think if I was giving it a value score, I'd probably give it like a 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be, man, if this was like $42, I think it'd be like a 9 out of 10 value.
Yeah. But then you're asking them to cut their price.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think maybe $50 to $55 might be a better price point.
Mm-hmm.
But, $60, it's fine. If I was scoring this out of 50, including the value score, I think I'd probably sit at like a 38 out of 50. Like a really nice experience that I would probably recommend buying a bottle.
Yeah, but honestly, the
just know what you're getting into.
Yeah, the packaging on this definitely takes it up a notch for me. And usually we're not swayed by packaging, but when I'm on the fence about whether or not to recommend the whiskey itself, if you can have something that's going to be a conversation piece and going to be eye-catching and it's only going to cost you a couple more dollars, I'm all in on that. And they clearly put thought and effort into the packaging here. It's a custom-made bottle. The label's really beautiful. I love the color scheme on it. So, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a stamp of approval, Brad. I don't know about you.
Yeah, 100%. If you find some Beverly High Rye out there in the wild, I would snag it immediately.
All right, man. Let's get back into talking with Jared Dixon from Hamilton. What do you say?
Let's get to it.
All right, so that was the Beverly High Rye American Whiskey. We want to say thank you again for this bottle. We are getting back into our conversation with Jared Dixon, who's currently on tour with Hamilton as Aaron Burr, and we're talking about our top 5 movie musicals. Now, Brad, I don't know how you made your list up, but I tried to stick with mine to Broadway to movie adaptations, because there's so many musicals. We could just do, like Singing in the Rain existed as a movie musical well before it was ever a show on Broadway. So, for the most part, I did sneak one in here that's just a movie. But I tried to go the Broadway route. I don't know, guys. Did you have trouble picking just 5, or is it like a pretty clear-cut list for you?
I mean, I don't even know if Jared would be able to pick 5.
No, he doesn't seem like a guy that's really steeped in the history of musicals at all.
No, Bob, honestly, I am not the biggest musical guy in the world as far as history and knowing them all, but I have some that I've really enjoyed. I think 2 of mine, actually, no, I'm pretty sure that 2 of mine are Broadway to movie and 3 are not.
Okay.
So.
Mine are all over the place. I got some Disney in there.
There you go.
Got some Broadway to movie, and I don't think do I have any movie to I don't think I have any movie to Broadway in there.
Yeah, see, I will say I literally didn't even think about the 90s Disney movies as musicals, and yet Bob and I were talking and he mentioned those and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of putting those in." Beauty and the Beast would be it might make my top 5 because I just freaking love that movie.
Right.
We've had this conversation so many times, Brad, about what makes a musical a musical. Is it does the music have to be diegetic? Does a movie, what was the one that we watched? Walk the Line, where they stop the movie for 3 minutes so that Johnny Cash can sing a song.
Yep.
Does that make it a musical just because there's a performance in it? And so I think the lines get blurred and it's up to interpretation, but that's what makes these top 5 lists so good. So I don't know, without further ado, we'll go one by one and we'll go from 5 to 1. So Brad and then Jared, what are your number 5 picks?
My number 5 pick is my yearly Christmas tradition. I watch this and I watch It's a Wonderful Life For sure. Like, other movies come and go. Some years I watch Elf, The Santa Claus, but every single year I will watch It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas. I just absolutely love White Christmas. I love all the performances. I think it's got the, like, when you actually sit down and watch it, it's got so many weird, just little scenes in the middle of it that only make sense to people who lived in the 40s and 50s, and I still don't understand. And I just love that. It makes it feel nostalgic to me. So I'm a big fan of White Christmas.
Number 5, I'm gonna say Coco.
Oh yes, I knew I liked this guy for a reason.
I was about to say, Jared, you just won a best friend for life in Bob.
Coco goes so hard and no one gets it. Like,
Coco goes so hard.
I turn that movie on and, like, I'm entertained, I'm weeping. All of the emotional roller coaster that you could possibly have comes from Coco.
Yeah,
like,
Jared, you thought you were going to get to talk about Coco.
I'm sorry. No, you're right. I'm sorry. Jared, yeah, why do you choose Coco?
So I actually had this conversation with a producer of Lion King. And we were talking about the future of Disney on Broadway. I was telling him, I was like, I don't even know if you guys know what devices really made Lion King the phenomenon that it is. I believe that all of the musicals that are attached to a culture that we know but don't have full access and understanding of are the ones that are fully that become the most popular. So, like, Lion King is attached to Africa. The Lion King, the musical, is attached deep in a deeper way to Africa, but the movie is attached to Africa and the that culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what made it the Broadway success that it is. And Coco has that same element with it being Mexican culture and all of the history around Dia de los Muertos and the food and them being shoemakers and the mariachis and all that stuff. And then on top of that, it's just written so well.
Yeah.
The melodies are brilliant. I love how it how it ends when the motif "Remember Me." It's like the "Remember Me" singing the one line in "Remember Me" is like saying "Bing Bong" to anyone who's seen Inside Out.
Yep.
This guy gets it, Brad.
Yeah, he 100% gets it. We listened to a Disney piano playlist to put my daughter to bed, and Remember Me comes on right after, what's the song from Toy Story 2?
Oh, the Sarah McLachlan one? Yeah.
Yes. It literally is the Sarah McLachlan song, and then Remember Me, and I'm like trying to read a book to my child and like trying not to weep.
Well, I'll wreck the moment here because my number 5 is not something that makes me weep, at least. But Brad, it's probably like one of the only Tim Burton movies that I've ever actually enjoyed. He just doesn't do it for me as a director, but I love his adaptation of Sweeney Todd. Like,
dude,
it's really good. And that, I mean, again, like it's when you talk about Sondheim, like you could pick a number of different shows, but Sweeney Todd, like the show is amazing, and then the movie itself is also really, really good. And it's really rare to find movies that succeed as movies in addition to just like, hey, here's a Broadway show. Like they did something unique with it. I thought it held up artistically. I really enjoyed Sweeney Todd.
I will actually agree. Sweeney Todd's definitely on my list.
Oh, there you go. A little further up though. All right, Brad, why don't you hit us with your number 4?
Yeah, my number 4, we're going back a little bit in time. I'm going to put up My Fair Lady.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
now, I will say this is one I have not watched in quite some time. I think the last time I watched it was probably high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember just being so drawn in by the chemistry between Audrey Hepburn and I can't think of the name of the main male character.
Rex Harrison. I mean, in the movie, it's Professor Higgins, right?
Yeah, Professor Higgins. But yeah, Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn are just incredible together in that movie.
There was a production that I want to say it was like Lincoln Square a couple years ago. And
recently.
Yeah, the guy that sang On the Street Where You Live, I wish I remembered his name. He was incredible. Like, there's just so many great numbers in that show. You know what? Jared, I'm going to let you give your number 4, and I'm going to Google real quick who it was that sang that song.
My number 4 is very, very recent. I'm going to go with the new Matilda.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
It is astounding.
Really?
Yes, it is one of the best things that I've seen. I was gonna say this year, but it's a short year. It's one of the best musicals I've seen in a while. I'll definitely say that.
Wow, man,
Yeah.
Bob, stumped by a guest.
Yeah, this is a rare occurrence, man.
Yeah, Jared, I am so thankful that you have come on this show. So tell us just really quickly, one sentence, like, what made you love Matilda so much to put it in your top 5?
I mean, just the way that the music flows with Roald Dahl's story and the words. It's really, really smart. It's really dense and brilliant.
Mm.
And and those kids are just giving every ounce of excellence that they can possibly muster in that thing. It feels really good. And it's not like, it's not very cookie cutter and kitschy. It allows itself to be as dark as I think Matilda should be. They made a flip on the character, and she's not so sweet and innocent with the sneaky attitude. She's like, she's a big shit talker, like big stepper. Like she's definitely worth her weight in gold in that show. So I really appreciate it. And maybe it's on my list right now because it's recency bias.
Sure,
but
sure.
I really think it stands up against any of the like kid musicals that are out there.
I would say so far we have 2 musicals prominently featuring kids for you, Jared.
Yeah. I think that has something to do with the fact that I got one coming on the way.
You do. Congratulations,
dude,
by the way, man.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go with my number 4. Oh, I found the guy from My Fair Lady. His name's Jordan Donica. He killed this song. Like, look it up later, man.
Oh, the Broadway. Okay, I don't know why. I'm thinking of another show. Okay. Jordan Donica is one of my guys.
Oh yeah. Well, tell him I said that he absolutely annihilated that song. Like, it was incredible. All right, my number 4. I'm gonna go with a movie that really has fallen like by the wayside, but it's from a show that still performed a lot, and that is the movie adaptation of Brigadoon. This is a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical.
Wow.
I don't know why Brigadoon has always had just a really special place in my heart. Like, it's cheesy as hell. And I love it. Like, it's just, there's something about a musical that is completely earnest with its own cheesiness that like it's endearing. And like with Gene Kelly in the movie and Leslie Caron and not Leslie Caron, Sid Charisse in that movie, directed by Vincent Minnelli. So it looks gorgeous. I love that movie. I love Gene Kelly, and I'm in love with those songs. So Brigadoon's number 4.
If I am correct, Brigadoon is a Scottish themed movie.
Yes.
And your name is Robert the Bruce Book. Is that correct?
That's true, actually, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I'm making a correlation here.
There's something
I'm just asking questions.
Deep within my bones that resonates with that musical.
It's like in your DNA.
All right, Brad, let's go through these a little quicker here, man. We're dragging. We got to get this guy to bed so he can perform tomorrow. Number 3 for you, Brad.
Number 3, I'm going more recent as well. I'm going to go with La La Land.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I love the story that is told by it. I think that as a musical, it is not necessarily the greatest pure musical of all time, but I just love what Chazelle did with the story, and I think that the cinematography of the film is beautiful. The way he uses lighting throughout is incredible. So I was just really a big fan of La La Land when it came out.
All right, Jared, number 3.
I'm gonna go with Cinderella.
Oh, nice.
The Brandy version.
Oh, okay. All right. You got to specify the brand with Whitney as the godmother, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That movie was just so monumental in so many of my friends' lives. It's kind of like to me, it's the Magic Johnson of movie musicals.
Let's go.
But you gotta give credit where credit is due. It's the first, it's one of the first. I think it's the only time that I've ever seen a black and white mom and dad produce an Asian son. Hats off to that.
Breaking the laws of physics, and we love them for it. And again, that's a Rodgers and Hammerstein adaptation. I did that show in high school, Brad, and it's the kind of show that, if I can be frank, it needed something to spice it up a little bit and make it fresh. And adding those dynamics to it, bringing in Whitney as the fairy godmother, it's so good. I haven't seen that version in forever. I got to check that one out again.
Yeah.
All right, my number 3, I'm going to go with Les Miserables. This is a movie that a lot of people are iffy on as a movie, especially with some of the vocalists in the movie. I don't know, man. It worked for me. And Les Mis is another one of those shows that if it resonates with you, then it resonates at a really, really deep level. And the character of Valjean, the themes of redemption and salvation in that movie are just, they hit me every single time. I can't watch that movie and not be moved by that final scene of the barricade after Valjean passes on into the afterlife. It's an incredible visual. Les Mis is my number 3.
Meh.
All right. Whatever, dude.
Jared, why are you being so rude to Bob? Jeez.
All right, Brad, number 2.
Number 2 has already been mentioned. Dude, I freaking love Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You hung on to that one.
I remember watching it in high school. Our choir sang. We didn't do the musical, but our choir sang through, a lot of the songs.
Yeah, sure.
It is just one of the most fun, darkly fun musicals ever created. And I just think that Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter and Alan Rickman, it's just such an incredible cast. And they have so much chemistry in this film that just brings this world, this, ugly, gross British world to life, dark and dirty. And man, it's so good, dude.
I'm right there with you. Sweeney Todd's number 2 for me.
Come on, Jared.
You're just talking about some of the most grimy, dark, dirty text that we've ever gotten from the man himself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, Johnny Depp, that whole cast is stellar. And it's actually one of the first musicals by Sondheim that made me really see the range of what theater is capable of, because Company was probably the first one that made me go, okay, I think I can do this. And then I started digging a little bit more into Sondheim and found Sweeney Todd and some of his others. And it holds a special place in my heart.
I would say, Jared, real quick, what's a go-to song for you from Sweeney Todd? Because for me, I love Poor Thing. I just think that as they move through the story of Sweeney Todd's former life, where she clearly kind of knows what's going on, what's happening in the story, as well as the actual lyricism and the music that's going on, I just think it's incredible.
Honestly, anytime Pirelli's on the screen was my favorite part of the show.
Sweeney Todd is so good. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
When he goes, finally, my arm is complete. That's 2 of my favorite parts.
Yeah, Pirelli has the feel of the Beatles. Shoot. My brain just the song that they made that's completely based off the circus poster.
Oh yeah, for the benefit of Mr. Kite.
Yes. Yeah, Pirelli just has that vibe about him, and it's perfect.
I was going to say, Sweeney Todd is so good that they made a whole episode of The Office where Andy is in Sweeney Todd, and and it still holds up even after that. That's a feat. All right, Brad, my number 2 is the only one on this list that didn't start as a Broadway musical, but you know that of all the old MGM musicals, it's my very favorite, and it is Judy Garland in Meet Me in St. Louis. This is it's one of those movies that's kind of on the border of even being a musical, because there's only 4 or 5 songs. But there's something so again, like earnest about it, and it's about a family, and it's about persevering through the hard times as a tight-knit family. That movie speaks to me. I watch it every year at Christmas, like you do White Christmas. So that is my number 2. And that brings us to all of our number 1 picks. Brad, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is probably, this might be a little cliche, but hopefully the rest of my list took care of that. West Side Story, man.
Yeah.
It was coming.
It's
Jared
incredible. I don't know. Are you guys there? Is West Side your guys' number 1?
It's my number 1.
I didn't put it there for the purpose of just like trying to move the needle forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it like a cliche in the musical theater community that is like?
Yeah, it's like it's like if you don't know basketball, you know Michael Jordan, and you just say, yeah, Michael Jordan is the GOAT, but you don't know why.
Yeah.
And I guess the same thing could be said about LeBron. So
Yeah.
It's just for me, if we're saying like top 5, I try to stay away from the suggested top 5.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
like you're not about to say Singing in the Rain.
No. I'm gonna put West Side Story as my honorable mention, as the like Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Maybe all by itself of movie musicals. And I'm gonna throw you guys a curve. I think this is a hot take. I really dig In the Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you were in The Heights, right?
I was in Boston, actually.
Okay.
For the purpose of where it came to us, like the timing that it came to us during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm a New Yorker. Mm-hmm. I'm in Hamilton. Lynn's my boss. So I gotta, I gotta get some brownie points there.
Right.
And just for the purpose of like what In the Heights means for, I think this is the converse of like when you were saying a musical that was made better as a movie or vice versa. Even though the musical is great, the movie, I don't know, the movie just did something for me that was really special. I think it was very monumental and very extremely underappreciated in my opinion.
Both that movie and the new Spielberg version of West Side Story, like both of those movies deserve better. And Anthony was so good in The Heights, and I thought he was going to get some more recognition than he did. But man, it was just a great movie. And again, like when you're talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda, like it's a great text. But I think you're right. I think the movie elevated the show to a new height there.
Yeah, the show was, I think, partly conflicted by the task that it had. It had to be digestible enough for Broadway audiences to get it, because maybe this is another hot take, but I think if you can get rich, dense Sondheim, like you can get hip hop. And so I don't think that we should ever dumb down hip hop for musical theater's sake.
Absolutely.
And Hamilton proved that. But the fact that it was new, I think that the stage show just did so much to advance the ears of musical theater listeners, and without it, we wouldn't have gotten Hamilton. So, I think the movie musical is a bit of the same, and then the directorial choices by John M. Chu, having them on the side of the building during sunrise. The shots of the GWB, just the bustling neighborhood that they created, Anthony's performance. There was just so many, the cameos, and a bunch of my friends are in it too. That's the reason it's up there for me.
All right, everybody, there you have it. Those are our top 5 movie musicals, but we would like to know what you think. So as always, you can hit us up on our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @FilmWhiskey.
Or you can jump onto our Discord. We are on there every single day talking with you guys, fans of the Film and Whiskey podcast, about movies, whiskey, musicals, trucking, all the different things that come up on the Discord can be pretty crazy. So you need to jump on there, join the conversation. You can find a link to our Discord at the end of every single one of our shows.
Once again, this has been Jared Dixon. He is currently on tour with the Philip cast in the North American tour of Hamilton as Aaron Burr. You guys are camping out in Boston for a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, we'll be there for, I think, 2 months. Unfortunately, by the time this comes out, I may be out of the show. I'm actually leaving February 5th.
Wow. Well, I mean, for a good reason. So,
yeah.
We understand. This guy is going to go on to incredible things. He's already reached the mountaintop with Aaron Burr, and I think that there's another mountain in view for him. It's been just an inspiration to talk to you today. I can't thank you enough for sitting down with us, Jared.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, we will be back on Monday with another regularly scheduled episode. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.
So here's the deal, everybody. We just absolutely love producing as much content as possible for Film and Whiskey Nation. But if our regular episodes aren't enough for you, then you can head on over to patreon.com/filmwhiskey, sign up for one of our memberships, and you will get a slew of extra content for your listening pleasure. Check us out on patreon.com/filmwhiskey.